Welcome to Brobench release recap 4.2. So we have some exciting features in this release. So let's take a look. So the first step is a field analysis module. You can access here, go into the app menu, click on the modules, and then the field analysis. This module helps you understand the percentage of the data population instead of in objects and the fields by the criteria that you're looking for. So you can pick and choose. You can click here to create a new request that allows you to select specifically which object that you want. You can analyze, of course, more than one object at a time and what kind of fields that you want to analyze, including by a category or by the type or even by the name, and then what level of or what records you want to analyze to understand the population. And once that analysis is complete, and then if you go to this particular analysis, it will show the details of that particular analysis, including at the object level as well as at a field level. So at a field level, it shows the details by the field, level of population, percentage, as well as other metrics, including the field level data type specific metrics, as well as the broader metrics like when was the last record with that value created, so on and so forth. Okay. It also has a population by the record type. If you have a record type for a particular object, you would want to understand if it is less populated, then you want to know if it is populated by a particular record type, so on and so forth. So this will help you. And if you are analyzing a pick list field, this will try to analyze by the pick list value what level of percentage has been populated. For example, if you go here in this case, let's minimize this a little bit, and you'll be able to see that what population is there by that particular pick list values. Okay, so that is the field level analysis module. Okay, so the next step is a quick field analysis. So it's field analysis great if you want to do the full control over what you want to analyze. But as you're browsing for an object, you want to know quickly, hey, what level of details are populated in the last, 1,000 records that are created or modified or whatever. So you can do quick field analysis. You can choose, whether you want to do by last created date or the modified date, how many records you want to modify or the analyze. So if you click on analyze, it's going to show the population right here of what level of percentage these fields are populated. So keep in mind, it doesn't show additional metrics related to the population. It just shows the record number of records you analyzed, what percentage of the data is populated. But if you still want a full control, then you would want to use the full field analysis full module. Okay. So the next step is a SOSL support, the Salesforce object search language. So it is integrated into the code editor. So you can go here and type, and then it's going to be able to search and return the details. And we do have some pre-processing built in. For example, if you specify an object and don't specify a field, we automatically include some basic fields, all the preview fields that you configured, as well as some audit fields like ID, the name, and then the create and modify it, so on and so forth. However, if you do specify a field, then the pre-processing is not done. It'll return only that particular details. Okay. So that is a SOSL support in the query editor. Okay. So the next step is a SOAP and then GraphQL support in the API request. We have a API modules here. You can go here and then we have added a type, the concept of type in this one. So the APIs were released in the earlier versions, but we have added a type so you can select what type of API that you are executing. Essentially, it boils down to HTTP request at the end of the day, but type gives you some kind of flexibility how you want to do it. For example, you can run a SOSL query here. It is basically, you can run SOSL here as well, but here if you want to run it, it will query the data and show the JSON as an API the Salesforce returns, for example. Keep in mind here, it is no pre-processing here. You have to type whatever that query that you're gonna want to send it to Salesforce. It's going to be able to see the request as the JSON, sorry, the Salesforce returns it. Similarly, you have a SOAP, so you'll be able to send a SOAP request to that. Okay, so for example, the read metadata or what have you, so you can send them. And similarly, you can send GraphQL request here. Okay, so that is the SOAP and the GraphQL support in the API request. So the next step is query via the bulk API support. So when you go to the query, when you have a lot of records, you typically, Salesforce uses a batch API to return the data. and then it can return up to from one record up to 2000. If you're querying a lot of long text area fields, or if you're querying a lot of fields, it may return like a 10-15 records. So it's going to take a long time to fetch. So in that case, so you can actually use um, the bulk API support. For example, let's say select all from account. Okay. So you can execute, as a bulk API. So the system will actually create a bulk request behind the scene, does all the heavy lifting, and then shows the result. Okay, so that you can get the data quickly. So it does still paginate. It paginates at a level of 50,000 requests per page. So if you have more than 50,000, it's gonna show that fetch next batch control that you can click on it and you can fetch more records. Okay. On the same line, so we do have added a capability to view the bulk query results. So let's say you have a third-party integration, and then that is actually issuing the bulk API request. And you want to understand what results were matched by that particular bulk request. You can go and then you can run this command, and then it's going to prompt you to enter the bulk job ID. And when you do, it's going to fetch the result and show in the similarly how you executed it. Okay, so that's a view the bulk API combined with bulk API support in the query editor. Okay, so the next step is execute as a polymorphic query. So you have a polymorphic fields where a particular field can refer to multiple objects. Typically, those are the standard fields, and the well-known being the what ID in a task and the event. It can point to account contact, so the opportunity, what have you, a whole bunch of stuff. So to query them, you have to use the type of construct. Okay, in the similar to this one, so it is typing up can be a little bit painful. Of course it works if you want to do it this way. The Brobench supports executing that, but we do have a support for querying that without using that construct by yourself. For example, in this case, I'm querying from a task in a subject, what ID, what annual revenue, but typically this would error out because hey, this is a polymorphic field and you would have to use the type of construct. But we do have a support here. You can click on execute as a polymorphic query, and then it will actually do behind the scene the work. It will actually substitute the object fields based on the field that you have specified, and then it will query and execute. And if you want to know exactly what query was executed, of course you can right click on the grid, go to actions, and then view query, and you'll be able to see that here. You can see that type of what, when, account, then annual revenue, because that annual revenue field was found only in the account object, so that is what is included. But if you do specify a field that includes or that match in multiple objects, then all the objects will be included. So keep in mind, if you use a standard, something like a generic field, like a created date, it's gonna match all the objects, right? So it is not, then it is gonna error out because it's gonna try to populate all the different objects. So it is gonna be beneficial for the object specific fields that you wanna query. Okay. So the next step is a view record hierarchy. So when you go to the record, when you create a field that refers to itself, that builds up in hierarchy. For example, well-known being the manager ID in a user object or a parent ID in account, so on and so forth. So when you go there, for example, then if you have a such fields in a record that you are seeing, the Brobench will show the hierarchy tab. When you click on it, it's going to show the hierarchy of that particular record. Right? So it's going to show all the parent and child. It's going to highlight the current record where it is. For example, there's a parent of this particular subsidiary. But if you have a more, or if there's child of other one, for example, if you go to this child, you will also be able to see that hey, this is the current and this is a child of this particular parent. Okay, so that's a hierarchy. So this works for all the fields, including standard as well as a custom fields. Anywhere you have the hierarchy, including a manager ID, if you want to see the manager hierarchy. Okay. So that is about a view record hierarchy feature. So the next step is track record changes. So you have uh, history. That's great. You can enable field tracking for some of the fields, but I don't think you can enable field tracking for all the fields in a particular object. And sometime if you're troubleshooting, you want to understand what all fields have changed, irrespective of the field is history tracked or not. So in that case, you can make use of the track changes. So when you're in a particular record, you can click on this record actions menu, click on track changes. Okay. So when you do that, it will show these track changes, let's go and hide these non-change fields. Okay, it's going to fetch the details and keep a version here as a base version. Okay, you can see that it was modified on that 1105. So, and then you can go to the fields and make some changes. Let's say this is KMOA channel, and go ahead and save it. And if you come back to track changes, you would see that it creates a new version of the data, and then it highlights what fields have been updated. Of course, you can filter to show only the non-change fields, hide the non-change fields. So in this case, it'll show only the change fields. Okay. So it shows in hey, these fields are changed. You can also go and hide the system field, so you get essentially what business fields have been updated. Okay. As you can see, there's the spinning refresh icons. It means it is monitoring it. You can change the interval within which it's going to refresh. By default, it refreshes every 2 seconds because you want to get a success with the quick versions. When you're doing multiple transactions, but if you whatever reason, if that's too sooner, you can go pick different interval. So let's go and make one more change just to see that. For example, the billing postal code, let's say 94568. Okay, so let's go say this. Okay, so I can see that multiple. We have some automation built to test this, and you can see that multiple fields populated. If we go back to the track changes, you can see that it has 4 different fields. Even though you did make one change, the 4 different fields have been updated, including address and other fields. So the one good thing about this is that it'll track changes, exactly what changed, even for fields which you cannot enable field history tracking in Salesforce, like a long text area fields or the long text rich fields, so on and so forth. Okay, so that is a track changes feature. Keep in mind this feature is enabled. These versions are kept only in memory till you close this tab. If you do close this track changes or the record itself, then whatever the versions that you have created or maintained so far, they're gone, vanish. Okay, it is only in memory. So the next step is compare values. As you can see here, for example, let's go make one more change. Okay, so this is a Dublin, and then let's say we are a street. Let's go save it. Okay, so it's created a one more version. That is great. As you can see, we have this address field. If it is simple field, they can tell you what changed by looking at it. But in this case, because the field is bigger, you wouldn't know what it is. So it's going to be a little bit difficult. So you can select these two columns, these two cells, right click and say compare with each other, and it will be able to show in a diff what really changed. Okay, so that is a compare values feature. We added a support for Excel file. So you can go here anywhere, you can right click and say export Excel data. So it data export. Let me see if my Mac number opens. Okay, let's bring this up. So you can see that here. So it has opened this Excel and it has all the data that we have requested to export. So that's the Excel support that you can get it from the grid. So that is a release recap, and I hope you like these features. And if you're looking for some new features to be added, please let us know. Please do share and then comment.